I'm Martine, the artist behind Martine's Fine Art. I recently finished this project and I like to show you the steps of this small art trip. I'll tell you the things I experienced and discovered while working on this project, from ugly stage to a realistic drawing. I needed about 40 hours to complete this project. For this piece I used three kinds of colored pencil, the Pablos and the Luminance from Caran d'Ache and the Polychromos from Faber-Castell. I used the colored pencil painting kit from Russian Pencil. I used black pen pastel, several pen pastel applicators, odorless mineral spirit, a small brush to apply the mixture of titanium white powder and a touch of texture, somewhat bigger brush to apply the mineral spirit, and I use it on UART 500 pastel paper 12 by 18 inch. Well, this is my first experience working on UART in combination with the colored pencil painting kit, and I'll take you through the process with a slideshow. I planned to film the whole project, but unfortunately I broke my leg. I was glad I could draw, but I couldn't manage to make a setup for filming. So this time it will be a slideshow mostly. Hope you won't mind. The first step was to transfer my drawing to the UART. I always make my initial drawing on a separate cheap piece of paper. Using a grid, or when I'm really lazy, I transfer it directly from a printed image. In this case, it wasn't that difficult, so I've used a grid system and drew the main outlines. I transferred them with the blue transfer paper to the UART. Then I started with the Polychromos. I know they blend very well with the powder blender. Wax-based or creamier colored pencils like Prismacolor and Luminance stick a little more to the surface and blend less easy. If you want to use them, it's better to prepare the surface with a small amount of powder blender first. But I chose the Polychromos and put down my first layer. Don't use much pressure when you apply it to the UART, because that will make it more difficult to blend things out. The first layer on the background was a really ugly one. I could draw like a child, really sloppy, just roughly blocking in where my lights and darks were, coloring in different directions without any problem, because when you blend it out with a powder blender, all your strokes become invisible. Here you can see me blending a part of the first layer. You don't need much of the powder blender, just a small amount will do. And I was really sloppy coloring that first part, but it blended very well. For the blending I used the pen pastel tool from Soft, S-O-F-F-T. The blending kit comes with little sponges in the same form as this one, but I like it when the tool has a longer grip, especially in this larger piece. This was a much easier and faster way to color a background. That was a very nice part of working with this system. On normal hot press watercolor paper, this background alone would cost me about 40 hours. Now I was able to complete the background in about 8 hours. Here you can see a few steps. Every time after a few layers of colored pencil, I blended things out with the powder blender. When I had the feel I was just moving around the colored pencil particles and not adding layers anymore, I sprayed it with the textured fixative from Russian Pencil. This will fixate the layers and add tooth to the paper. The only downside of the fixative I experienced was that there appeared small shiny particles on the deep black background. Not really a problem. When you will color over it, they will disappear. But it's a factor you'll definitely have to keep in mind. Plan a last layer on the background when you'll finish the main subject. Some people ask if the UART eats your pencils. well, you don't have to sharpen the point that much and you'll add a lot of pigment at once. So it seems as if they eat your pencil, but the process is going faster. So I don't think it uses more of your colored pencils than watercolor paper. Another great advantage of working with this system is erasability. See where I accidentally went over my subject lines? I could erase this without any problem. I decided to try my black pen pastel also, because that would give me an even faster coverage of the black parts. That worked really well. Next time I will use that in the first layers, because this will speed up the background process even more. The really wonderful thing of the UART and the textured fixative is the possibility of layering lighter colors on top of the darker ones. They show up very well. It gives you the possibilities of paint with the control of colored pencil, without fumes, toxicity or mess. I think in the first layers it works like pastel, without the mess of pastel, and I always have issues with sharpening pastel pencils. Problems I don't have with the colored pencils. Well, then I started with the main subject, the glass and the strawberries. The right strawberry was a real struggle, but the nice part of this, when you have a bad layer, just spray it with the textured fixative and you can work with the lighter colors on top of the darker ones, or put in completely different colors with such an ease you can work on it till you're completely satisfied. When you don't want to spray, you can also use the tiny small bottle of touch-up texture and use a small brush in the bottle to apply it. Here you can see I've blocked in the main shapes in the glass, just roughly to see where all the subjects were. I blended this out and then I started to build up color and detail. Here you can see the shiny particles on the black background. Like I said, it isn't really a problem, but because I had to spray my main subject a couple of times, I plan to do one more layer on the background in the end. I noticed that you can use Luminance in the final layers and use the odorless mineral spirit to smoothen things out. Sometimes the blending tool is just too big and the brush can be more precise. But I tried the odorless mineral spirit in other parts of the drawing, in a first and a second layer, and wasn't happy with the result. Some parts were smoothened out really nice, but on other parts it lifted the color. So I put the OMS aside and decided not to use it anymore in this project. Then I decided to try my Pablos on top of the Polychromos. And oh, I love them on the UART. They tend to hold a really sharp point, so I could work very precise and get in the details very nice. Sometimes it's just a matter of color which pencil I would take. But for the sharp details here, the Pablos are the winner on the UART. Then I had to put in all the small white droplets on the leaves and the lemons. First I tried this with the white colored pencil, but then I decided to paint them in with a mixture of titanium white powder with touch-up texture. This is really fun because it gives your lights and highlights a real punch. So, and that's it. If you have further questions, just post them below. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.